All right, let's bring in Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, a member of the Senate Budget Committee, as we switch gears and talk about this infrastructure plan that's really not much about infrastructure. It's about $2.2 trillion. And, Senator, I think people are starting to catch on to the fact that this is totally mislabeled, that only between 5 and 20%, depending on what you count as infrastructure, is actually remotely related to infrastructure. Do you think the American people are seeing through it?
Yes. They're not morons. And look, President Biden has invited some of my colleagues today to visit the White House to talk about it. And I think that's a great thing. And here's what I hope my colleagues tell President Biden. I hope to say, look, Mr. President, we appreciate the invitation to come over. The White House cookies are great. We've got some questions, though, because this thing you've proposed has more red flags than the Chinese embassy. Number one, show us a list of the projects. We can keep debating what kind of bill this is, but show us a list of the projects you have in mind. You're asking us to get in the van. Show us the candy first. Number two, Mr. President, no offense, but stop the Niagara of lies and tell your staff to stop it. It's embarrassing. We can read the Moody's Analytics report. Tell the truth about this thing. Number three, we get it. We understand that a big part of your plan is the Green New Deal. So we have a fundamental question, Mr. President. Before we go spend another squillion dollars, I think the whole plan costs $2.3 trillion with a $1.7 trillion tax increase, and by the way, $1 trillion is 1,000 billion. Before we go do all of that, tell us how much your Green New Deal is going to lower world temperatures and over what period of time. I mean, that's why we're doing this, right? The climate activists and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, part of the UN, says that we can only allow world temperatures to rise another 1 degree before we have an environmental apocalypse. That's the theory behind all of this. Okay, tell us how much your plan is going to lower world temperatures. And number four, Mr. President, we respect you, but you have to tell us how many jobs your corporate income tax increase is going to cost America. Yeah. When you tax something, you get less of it. Duh. Our companies compete with every other country in the world for business, given the fact that we live in a global economy and capital is mobile. And any person who has even a casual relationship with the discipline of economics knows that corporations don't pay taxes. People do. Workers pay them in lower wages. Right. Investors pay them in lower returns. We pay them in higher prices. Tell us how this is going to impact the American consumer. And let's be honest with each other.
Well, and we were talking on Friday, Senator, about the estimates are that if this passed, with the higher corporate taxes, it would cost at least 1 million American jobs in the first 2 years. So they're not only redefining what infrastructure is, but they're also redefining, because they can, or at least they would like to try, what it means to be bipartisan. You mentioned how they're going to have 4 Republicans and 4 Democrats there in the Oval Office later today at 1:45. But here's what Anita Dunn, a senior advisor to the president, said to the Washington Post. She said, if you looked up bipartisan in the dictionary, I think it would say support from Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't say the Republicans have to be in Congress. So essentially what they're saying, and this kind of follows what Joe Biden had said during his first press conference, where he was talking about he's got a lot of support out there with Republicans in America. As you travel around and you talk to regular people, is that what you've found? You've heard people say, look, I didn't vote for Joe Biden, but I really like this infrastructure plan?
Well, this is what I mean. Stop the Niagara of lies. You know, I mean, this is why the aliens won't talk to us. Just tell the truth. If you believe that statement, you need to go to bed. You're drunk. I mean, the whole point of this meeting today is to try to get Republicans to vote for the bill. Yep. But we've got a lot of questions. The door's open. It's heavy, but the door's open. But the president and his team need to stop the spin and let's just get down to it. And stop implying that there's a free lunch here. There's no free lunch, and you don't get one now. Everything free, somebody had to work for. That much I know about life.
So Joe Biden said he was going to form this bipartisan commission.
Bipartisan again.
Exactly,
Yeah.
when it comes to the Supreme Court. But when you read the fine print and you really dive into who these folks are that are on the commission, progressives hold a 3-to-1 ratio to conservatives. And out of those conservatives, or out of the whole group, 80% are affiliated with Harvard or Yale. We had Ben Domenech on earlier, and he said if you really look at these conservatives, though, many of them were never Trumpers. So when it comes to court packing, they're going to make the decision. All these folks right here are going to help him come to a decision. But back in the 80s, Joe Biden and some of the liberal justices were against court packing. Watch this.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make.
9 seems to be a good number, and it's been that way for a long time.
What I'm trying to do is to make those whose initial instincts may favor important structural change or other similar institutional changes, such as forms of court packing, think long and hard before they embody those changes in law.
That's the guy they want to retire.
Yeah, Senator, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, the old Joe Biden is different than this new Joe Biden.
Well, I can't tell yet whether the president really believes this silliness or he's just trying to appease the wokers. I can tell you the wokers do want to pack the Supreme Court. Their vision for the United States Supreme Court is a lot different from the vision of the American people. They want activist judges. They want judges who will rewrite the United States Constitution, which I'm very fond of, every other Thursday to advance some social agenda that they can never get by the voters. They want activist federal judges who are basically politicians in robes. And they're upset at the fact that the United States Congress just confirmed 3 real, call it like you see it, judges to the Supreme Court, so they want to pack it. I hope President Biden doesn't give in to them.
Yeah, I just thought it was
If he does, we're going to have a hell of a fight. I can put it that way.
Right, and then of course he wants to get Washington D.C. a state and just change the economy and how we power the country. Besides that, it's just pretty much business as usual. One thing is pretty unusual.
Well, Brian, it's all neo-socialism, and all neo-socialism is trickle-down poverty. All you have to do is look at other countries that have tried it.
Right. Listen, I think it's getting pretty scary. I don't know who's in charge there. One thing is kind of scary. Sometimes on Twitter, you go on and you hear people sing. I was wondering if you recognize this guy and this voice and this song.
Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart. Live free and beauty surrounds you. The world still astounds you each time you look at a star.
I love it, and we know that Elsa eventually gets let out back into the wild, and we assume lives a great life. What prompted that?
Well, just because I can't sing doesn't mean I won't sing. I was trying to get folks' attention. I want my people in Louisiana and the people of America and the people of the world to consider taking the vaccine. You don't have to. It's this is a free country. If you don't like that, I hear North Korea is great this time of year. This is a free country. You don't have to take it. I took it. I think it works. I have 2 brothers who are physicians in whom I have great confidence. They've taken it. They say it works. If you're scared of needles, as I am, they can accommodate you. It didn't hurt a bit. Right. And I think it's our way out of this mess. But people don't have to take it, but I sure hope they'll seriously consider.
I got my first shot, so
Yeah,
I'm waiting on my next one
all-
next Monday.
We've all had the shot, and
Good.
they're using the littlest needle possible, so you don't really feel it until maybe the next day.
Yeah, mine didn't hurt a bit.
Okay, there you go. Well, you're probably just tougher than me. Senator, I want to show you, this is a high school English teacher out in San Marcos, California, and she is essentially yelling at students because their parents are complaining about teachers not being back in the classroom. Listen to this.
Your parent wants to talk to me about their profession and their opinion on their profession. I would love to hear that. However, if your parent wants to come talk to me about how I'm not doing a good enough job in distance learning based on what you need as an individual, just dare them to come at me. Because I am so sick to my stomach of parents trying to tell educators how to do their job.
And Senator, I read comments by one of the mothers whose children were in that class, and she said when she was at work and her son sent her that little video, she just burst into tears because she was horrified that her son had been sitting through those kinds of lectures the whole year.
Well, the lady's comments are obviously disappointing. Look, in Louisiana, we've been back in the classroom since August. And you know who did that? Our teachers, our school administrators, our parents, our
Being
kids.
responsible.
I'm really proud of that. And we need to get back in the classroom, and I think it can be done safely. Look, I can't list you without looking it up, the first 6 presidents of the United States in proper order, but I will never forget my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade teacher.
Yep.
The future of this country is education. It's not the price of oil, it's not the unemployment rate, it's not who the U.S. Senator is or who the president is, it's education. And we're going to lose a generation of kids here. And I've said this to President Biden, he needs to stand up
He won't listen.
and look the education committee and the community in the eye and say,
He doesn't.
and say, open up the schools.
He's scared to death.
We've given you.
He's scared to
we've
death to
given
do
you
it. He
so
doesn't take
much
on
money.
unions. He doesn't take on unions.
Well, he needs to look the education community in the eye and say, set my children free. Open up the schools. It can be done safely. We've given you the money. There's no excuse.
Yeah, the governor of California also gutless as well. So
That's
the kids
just
suffer.
And that's a perfect example of why they need to be back in schools. This lady is losing it. She either needs the classroom or a vacation.
Sure. Senator, thank you very much.
And I think most teachers want to go back.
They do.
I think you're exactly right. Senator, thank you very much. Would you like to sing us out? Is there another song that you would like to sing for us right now?
Thank you for that generous offer, but I think I'm going to pass.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
sir.
Senator.
Always a pleasure.